Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Bod YC edition. We have Arvind Veluvali. Veluvali, I always have problems pronouncing your last name, Arvind, but Arvind is CEO of Fresco. He's part of YC F24. For those that know YC, it's the best accelerator for startup and incubators. It's located in SF or near SF. And yeah, Arvind started Fresco. It's an AI for construction company. Previously was chief of stack and director of partnership at January AI. It's a precision medicine company based in the Bay Area. He also worked at Vault Health. He was co-founder at Down Ballot Solution in 2020, and just an interesting guy altogether. And obviously worked at NASA. I think that was his first job, synthetic biologist. So very interesting background. I'm super honored to have Arvind as a guest today, but also as a client of mine. So Arvind, if you want to give us a quick introduction about yourselves and tell us what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks, Charles. My name is Arvind. I am the CEO here at Fresco AI. Basically, we help construction companies, specifically general contractors, put together their on-site documentation more easily. We do that using generative AI, and we've taken a lot of workflows that have been really annoying because they've traditionally only existed on the desktop and moved them over to the phone, leveraging the latest in technology to finally make that possible. We're working with some of the largest GCs in the country right now, but signing more clients every day.
Right. And tell us about how you started at NASA in 2020 and how you went from there to a YC company. Is that a common path?
Yeah. Originally in college, I was actually pre-med. And so I had done a few internships at NASA, and, those were basically in service of my pre-med ambitions. I was a biologist there, basically doing a lot of kind of genetic editing stuff on fungi mostly. And the idea was I would take that knowledge from NASA, all of that experience at the benchtop, and use it to become kind of a physician researcher. And so I graduated in 2020, and I decided to, instead of matriculating directly to medical school, take a gap year where I would work at NASA, but also I would do my master's in biotechnology at Brown. During that time, because it was a pandemic, I had a lot of free time. And so I ended up starting Down Ballot Solutions, like you mentioned, with a few of my friends from high school, actually. And that company, I won't talk specifically about what it did, but it ended up doing pretty well and being pretty successful. And the product itself wasn't necessarily something that was super, super complicated to build. And I realized that, entrepreneurship was something that I was really interested in, probably more than medicine. It was something that really appealed to me. And so I ended up, foregoing medical school and coming to San Francisco, where I initially worked in venture capital and then kind of sought more operational roles. So I worked as a product manager, and then for the last 2 years, a really great learning experience as the chief of staff at this leading health tech AI company called January AI, and learned a lot. And the journey to Fresco, I think, a lot of people tend to hop on trends in the technology industry, right? Where, crypto was a trend and suddenly everyone was an expert on crypto. And I guess that was like the last big one that really defined the zero interest rate period. I never really saw the use of crypto. It seemed very hypey to me. In 2022, though, AI was becoming a thing. I remember in November of 2022, ChatGPT launched, and immediately my mind was blown. I started using it for everything. And there are people who I followed who were these tech luminaries who said, unironically, that AI represented a complete sea change in technology. It was the most significant technology advance since probably the internet. And that really stuck out to me. And I thought to myself, look, if I have founding ambitions, like, this is a technology to do it with. Like, if I had been around for the dawning of the internet, I probably would have wanted to start an internet company. And here I am at the dawning of the AI, I guess, renaissance. I should be starting an AI company. And so I met my co-founder, Akil, and we basically started looking for different sectors of the economy where AI could really make an impact. And construction, it became evident to us for a number of reasons, was a really strong candidate for that sort of solution. So we've been building Fresco for about the last year or so.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. I want to double click on your crypto comment. So at first I didn't get crypto as well. I think still 90% plus of actors in the field are high P type of people, right? They're not like value first. Crypto to me is just freedom, about banking freedom, right? Like when you start understanding that your bank is not giving you optimal conditions, and when a transfer takes 4 fucking days instead of 20 seconds, right? You sort of like, okay, we need a better solution. I also think, and you've been in politics, right? You've probably seen that. I think the banking sector is very much a gerontocracy. There's a lot of old people at the top that control the full system, and that's quite frustrating. And I think like newer generations want something new. So I still have probably 13% of my clients are in crypto, but like they're very serious and they're total nerds. They're
Yeah,
pirates.
sure.
They're not like the NFT hypers. And I think we've seen a couple of startups at YC in the crypto space, but I don't think it lasted super long. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
but yeah, AI totally friggin' game changing. Why do you think you got hooked so quick to GPT? Is it because you're constantly about self improvement and you wanted a brain sparing partner?
Yeah, I mean, I think ChatGPT felt like a totally new interface with which to interact with technology. I think, I was constantly on Google, like looking up answers to very specific questions that I had. And with Google, it was basically, I mean, it is an aggregator where you ask it a question and Google doesn't necessarily give you the answer, or at least it didn't back then. It would give you a list of links that might contain the answer. Whereas with ChatGPT,
Bias linked, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you could ask ChatGPT a question where, if I had an employee and I asked it a very specific question, I wouldn't want the employee to say, well, you can check these 10 sources. I would want that person to give me the answer, right? And that's exactly how I interacted with ChatGPT, and it made all of my queries, like being a curious person, like so much more efficient. I was able to more effectively get the information that I was seeking, and so seeing that kind of initial kernel that ChatGPT started as, and then finally seeing it kind of morph into this more all-encompassing tool that has manifold applications, it's been really exciting to see.
Right. And I think there's multiple phases in getting real deep in the AI revolution. The number one phase is being a hyper user of ChatGPT, and not all of these LLMs. I think ChatGPT is the most stable one. Altman deploys like crazy, always ahead of the curve. And also, like, for example, his last update about taking all your memories, right? That's huge. Like all that I ever said to it is now
Yeah, for sure.
relating to that. That's just game changer. I think the second step, not sure about you, but for me, it's been building up, and we're seeing vibe coding right now that's taking off like crazy. To me, even before vibe coding, I think is just creating pure Chrome extensions and connecting Chat GPT to it to improve pretty much everything that I'm doing on a daily basis. Have you started doing that on your end as well?
I mean, I think ChatGPT itself has so many different uh, I forget they're called. I think they're just called GPTs, where like people make custom GPTs.
Yes.
I made a few of those of my own. I think I kind of maybe skipped the Chrome extension part. I think those have proven to be so useful that that's kind of where I focused a lot of my own kind of noodling. But yeah, I totally agree. I think one of the cool things about AI is it's like really democratized the ability to interact with these technical interfaces in a way that wasn't possible before.
And with vibe coding, do you feel that it's going to be possible, for example, for a YC company to go fully solo and be full stack builder and seller?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes and no. I think that with vibe coding, it's really good at getting you to kind of like a technical MVP. I do think there are a lot of things that maybe vibe coding can't necessarily account for. There was this thing on Twitter a couple months ago where someone had vibe coded their entire application.
Yeah, what's his name again? That
I
guy?
forget, but they got hacked like immediately and weren't totally sure what to do. I think my co-founder is very technically gifted. I don't think we'd be where we are if like he had vibe coded the entirety of Fresco.
Right, I'll get his name. I have it in a WhatsApp convo of mine. Poor guy. Yeah, I think that's been a main insight of like coding stuff is that it needs to be secure, right? Like
Yeah.
even like building an app that's connected with Open API at OpenAI's API, you don't want to leave your API key in there, and like a bunch of details like that. And that got me to understood cybersecurity as an industry a bit more. But why did you specifically choose construction as an industry? Did you have experience in there? Do you need to have experience, or can you just beat anyone and jump with 2 feet and be successful?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't necessarily have any experience in construction. I think that to kind of answer your first question, like I think you can kind of get into any field as long as you kind of meet the right people who do have that experience. I think people are very generous with their time and their insights, as long as you approach it with some degree of like humility and a learner's mindset. I think if you prove to people that you're there earnestly with you know, a real ambition to learn and gain from their insights, they're a lot more willing to talk to you than you might think. In terms of why we chose construction, it was a couple of things. I think the main part of it, though, is construction represents just an outsized part of the economy that really hasn't been touched by tech in a substantial way. And even though there's been a ton of advances in technology, you know, construction is 8% of the economy. We create like $2 trillion worth of structures every year. And if you look at these legacy solutions, a lot of them look very antiquated. And you know, the best in class is a solution like Procore, which definitely has a lot of capabilities, but even they haven't penetrated the entire market in a way that you know, tools like Microsoft Office are ubiquitous in fields like pharmaceuticals or you know, sales. And so we thought there was a really big opportunity for tech to penetrate construction in a robust fashion. And we thought AI was the interface to do it, because the problem with tech penetration in construction is a lot of the workflows that you know, people are trying to transpose to construction are modeled off of workflows that exist solely on desktop, right? If you're creating reporting, if you're doing bidding, like you're doing that sitting at your laptop or your desktop computer at a desk somewhere, right? Construction is different because there is seldom time when you're at your desktop. You're doing a lot of data capture, but it's just happening on your phone. And AI, for the first time, makes insights that were only attributable to the phone, only gatherable on the phone. We can finally take those and conduct desktop level work using the phone as an interface. And we thought that was a really exciting application of this technology.
I see two moats in Fresco, and you tell me if I'm wrong. First one is that people that may start companies in that space, your competitors, they're like ex-construction people, now founders. And the second one, and by the way, the advantage here is that, yeah, you're like you're super nerd, right? You're young, you bring like fresh new ideas in that. And the second one is AI age related. I believe one of the last sectors to be physically disrupted by AGI would be construction. What do you think about these two modes?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes. I do think like having innovative ideas is probably a moat. Like AI just enables
Fresh
you
mind
to
also.
ship faster. Yeah, and you can iterate a lot faster. I think honestly, the biggest moat that we have is just the level, and this goes back to the conversation that we were having before about you know, being technical. The biggest moat that we have is the relationship that we have with our customers, right? Like with AI, you can very easily spin up you know, mock-ups, prototypes, whatever of new technology, right? I watched someone code a clone of Airbnb in like 3 hours, right? The
A
real
functional
moat,
one,
that's right, yeah,
not the
you know,
Leo one.
exactly, yeah. But again, the real moat is do you have trust with your customers? Do you have those human relationships you're able to build? And that's something that we index really heavily on, is making sure our customers are getting value of our product, making sure they like us and they like Fresco's technology. And there was this quote I really like, which is that your talent opens the door, but your character holds it open. I think that being really high integrity with our customers and proving that we're there to serve them has really been good for us and been good for them as well.
And isn't it hard for you as a techie kid to go physically and meet them on a construction field?
I mean, yeah, it's hard, and honestly, like at times, like it's not very fun. But you know, I think the other moat is you do have to probably sometimes get up at 5 a.m. and go to a construction site in like rural Indiana, which I've done and we've done at Fresco. A lot of people don't want to do that, right? You know, if you're selling SaaS, you can sell SaaS behind your desktop. You can't really do that in construction, and I think that's been a big part of the uphill climb. But I do think that's something that, because a lot of people aren't willing to do it, A, that drives trust with our customers, and B, I think that just keeps out a lot of people who maybe aren't as serious about this.
Yeah, but nothing compared to that Airbnb founders that at first that had to staple their logo to cereal boxes
Yeah, that's
and
right.
knock on doors and be like, "Hey, why not have someone on a stranger in an air mattress in your New York apartment?" Right?
Yeah, it's pretty hardcore. We definitely did similar things when we were kind of initially starting Fresco, we did like walk onto and get kicked off of a number of construction sites. But yeah, we definitely did a lot of that door to door, and we still do that actually.
And where does that resilience comes from in you? Is it just like pure YC inspiration, or did you have that in you from a young age?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like I think that one of the things that I was really cognizant of was I wanted to train myself to be comfortable with just getting rejected. There's this one guy. This is a very popular like internet post, I think a decade ago, where this person wanted to become really comfortable with rejection. So he would just ask a bunch of audacious things to people over the course of like 100 days and get rejected at subsequently bigger and bigger and bigger things. But what he found was that like if just by being willing to ask for things and know that he could likely get rejected, he was actually able to like talk himself into some pretty amazing situations. And so I think that one of the things I've tried to do is just be in a position where I'm getting rejected more than feels comfortable, because I think if you're getting rejected, you're stretching yourself. And I think when you're stretching yourself, you can achieve those asymmetrical outcomes.
I think that guy was Noah Kagan. There's various that did that experiment, but Noah Kagan, yeah, he also did like all these videos knocking on rich people's doors and asking them what they do for a living. He also got invited to yachts and to private jets using the same method. And just for the sake of doing the experiment, it might be worth it, because Noah is already a decamillionaire for sure. Question for you: do you do cold calls? It's quite surprised me to
I do,
that
yeah.
the other day. Is that part of the same experiment?
It's not necessarily part of the same experiment. I think cold calling is one of those things that like, well, in construction, like people walk around sites with their phones, which is one of the common ways that we get in touch with early customers. I mean, the other thing is like sending a cold email off into the void and like getting rejected. I guess it probably hurts less than like getting cursed out on a phone call, which can and does happen when you're making cold calls.
To construction guys.
That's right. Yeah. And so I think that like, again, like there is a high chance of rejection, and there is kind of a larger, I guess, hurt factor when that rejection comes, because it's like a person yelling at you instead of like no email response or someone responding to you via email you can just delete. But I do think like there is asymmetric upside to cold calling. Like we've gotten a decent number of clients from cold calling, and it's definitely something we still do here at Fresco.
Right. And tell us how hard it's been, maybe not to get through YC. I think that's been the easiest part, but just getting through YC, demo day, getting this off the ground. How hard has it been? And could you find happiness in these last couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been like decently difficult. I think it's mostly just because there's not like a clear path. It's mostly like you kind of have to figure it out on your own. But I will say like hard and fun are kind of the same thing. I think I've worked in a lot of jobs where they were hard. They weren't necessarily fun. I think like this is probably fun because it's hard. And you kind of get to be the driver of your own car, if you will. And I don't know, I think this is like the most fun I've ever had at a job. Like it doesn't feel like a job, even though I guess technically it is. Yeah, it's really genuinely a great time.
And is it because your last jobs have been hard at working at the VC firm or being a chief of staff?
No, I mean, I think like there were definitely moments when I had fun in those jobs, and like, you know, for example, my chief of staff job, I learned a lot. So like, I had a lot of really great experiences. I think the reason I think this job is so fun is because all of the experiences that I've kind of cultivated in my early career have been in service of wanting to start my own company one day. And I think sometimes just taking a step back and realizing like what a privileged position that I and we are in at Fresco, it's hard to believe sometimes. And I think that the knowledge that I get to wake up every day and, you know, work with one of my best friends and work on problems that I really care about with customers that I genuinely enjoy. I mean, who gets to do that, right? It's really great.
What does a day-to-day in your life looks like?
I think it can vary, which is one of the nice parts about working in a startup. I spend a lot of time on customer acquisition, customer support, putting together collateral for various people. Yeah, it really depends.
Wake up at 5?
No, I don't. I definitely don't wake up at 5. I usually am up around like 7, and then I probably go to bed at like midnight.
And you're a musician as well. Where does that fit in your day?
My what?
You're a musician.
I am, yeah.
Where does that fit in your day? Do you jam every day?
I usually try to actually, yeah. My last boss, when I was chief of staff, actually gifted me. It's like one of the nicest things anyone's ever done for me. But she gifted me this very very nice like piano keyboard. I've been playing the piano for like more than 20 years now, and it's like one of my favorite things to do. It's a great way to like decompress and like wind down at the end of the day. And so it's not like a conscious thing that I fit into my day, but if I get like spare moments and just want to unwind, like it's one of my favorite things to do.
Once you exit Fresco, let's say in 3 to 5 to 6 years, do you want to get back into medicine again? Biotech?
Maybe. I mean, I guess never say never. I mean, I think biotech is a really interesting field. There's a lot of cool things that you can do in biotech. You can impact people's lives in a direct way that's not accessible in a lot of other fields. I do think with biotech, it's really hard to be a startup in biotech. And the reason I say that is because when you're a startup, you really focus on those like iteration loops or feedback loops, right? Where you launch something, you get a bunch of feedback quickly, and then you kind of go back and iterate. And the tighter those feedback loops are, and the more experiments you can run, the more successful you can be. There's a quote I really like, which is, if you knew you had to fail 30 times before you were successful, how many or how quickly would you want to fail, right? And so I think like fail fast is like a startup motto. In biotech, like the timelines to running an experiment are so long, where in startup land, like when you're making a software company, you can run an experiment on a product inside a week, right? In biotech, it might take you like a year to get a candidate drug, then you have to like get into humans or animals first and then humans, and then various stages. It can be a decade before you even have the answer to your experiment, right? Which is really difficult to do as kind of a startup. It requires tremendous capital. It's typically why you see a lot of new biotech innovation come out of like university labs that can shoulder the cost of this funding, that do more basic science. But I think for now, for startups, like biotech is a really difficult proposition to entertain.
But aren't they going to have a ChatGPT like revolution in which we're going to get in silico and we're going to be able to 100x experiments through in
I really
silico?
hope so. Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited by advances like AlphaFold. Like I think that's really tremendous. I'm definitely a techno optimist. Like I think like when I forget who was this, the CEO of DeepMind was on 60 Minutes last week, and he was saying in 10 years we could have a cure to all disease, and I definitely think that's feasible. Like if you look at cancer treatments, most cancer treatments that we have today, I'm 26, those were not available when I was a kindergartner, right? And we're getting more and more and more every day. We've cured cystic fibrosis, we've cured sickle cell, we've cured hereditary deafness with tools like CRISPR. It's a combination of a couple things. Like one, how quickly can we adopt this new technology? And two, how quickly can the regulatory landscape catch up to what's happening in science? When I mentioned we've cured sickle cell and like CF, like these are physically cured with tools like CRISPR. We're waiting on the regulators to catch up and say, yes, this is now a treatment that everyone can have access to.
And I'm bullish on Dennis and Sam as well, but don't you think that them being absorbed by big corporations is drastically slowing them down by Google and by Microsoft?
I don't know. Like I don't really know what goes on inside Google or DeepMind. I do think like when I talked about like universities doing a lot of the foundational research that leads to innovations, I mean, I think Google's kind of the same, right? Google invented the transformer that led to like GPT. And so I think like these large organizations with a lot of capital can certainly drive a lot of innovation. I do think they've had more of an innovative posturing over the last year or so, if not longer. So I'm optimistic. Like I think the pie is plenty large and can get larger still.
And I'm also a techno optimist. Do you feel that we're going to get an AGI that's going to bring massive value to the world in 2 to 3 years, but slash 80% of the job market?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the question around like AGI, I think the goalposts are continually shifting. Like, what is AGI? Like, how do we define it? Like, I don't know. But I certainly think like we have AI right now that is probably commensurate with the capabilities of like the average person, right? Like ChatGPT can probably answer a question just as well as like your average research analyst. In terms of like cutting the job market, like I don't know. I really can't comment. Like I know a lot of people have very fatalistic outlooks on the job market. In the next like 20 years, like will we even have jobs? I do think like we'll probably have different kinds of jobs that show up. We might have some sort of contraction, but I'm confident like I'm optimistic that we might have a solution like a UBI or more time for leisure or something else. But it's hard to comment.
Yeah, two pieces of definition just to see what you have to say about these on AGI. One, it's agentic, and we're about to hit that revolution, right? So it has autonomy over its action. Right now, ChatGPT and all of these tools don't really have agentic possibilities. And second, it would drastically outperform humans. Does that mean it would replace jobs? Let's say that I'm an ICO and I still want to give some work to fellow humans, sure, but I don't know if I'm really, really greedy. I think I would just have like agentic solutions all over the place. So what do you think about these?
It's a good question. I think a couple of things, like one, accountability is really difficult to foist upon a robot if you don't have like a human kind of undergirding that. The other thing is I think like before we used to have like secretaries typing everything out physically, and secretary was a job, and then everyone got a laptop or they figured out how to use their own typewriters, and they just became more efficient. Like typing wasn't something that consumed an entire day of work for a person, but the economic output we've been able to achieve has just been drastically higher. I think AI is going to be a very similar thing where you can have this like team of minions doing work for you that is otherwise difficult or onerous for you to do, where they can communicate with your suppliers, they can pay your rent, right, or they can maybe even negotiate with other AIs. The other thing I'll say with agentic AI is I don't necessarily think AI is going to be maximally useful without some sort of physical embodiment, right? Like look at medicine, for example. Like I think that like I would honestly probably trust an AI's diagnostic capabilities given the right tests more than like the best doctor, because AI has more information than any human can ever absorb. But that being said, like there's still a human who's drawing my blood. There's a human spinning the centrifuge and doing all the tests. If I have to have a procedure, it's a human doing that. Like AI can be valuable in kind of assisting in those workflows, but insofar as there's like an interaction with the physical world, like it's really difficult to imagine AI being replacing any of those workflows.
Right. Yeah. And these professions would become more psychotherapists, like, so for the experience and also the trust factor, the human connection. Oh, there's a human. It's kind of silly, right? It would be like a full AI backend, but humans trust humans, yet they don't trust fully AGI. But I do think that there would be a moment in which they would trust more an AI than their human counterparts if statistics are right. I also think an AGI would be unboxed and fully unhinged, not aligned with humans, but then would it even want to serve us? What do you think about that factor?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting question. Yeah, I don't know. I think constraints around AI are a really interesting thing to contemplate. I would caution against letting AI kind of take over a lot of the capabilities that we as humans execute. I remember I had a math teacher in 6th grade. We were taking algebra, and we got access to this like top of the line graphing calculator. And she said, "Here's a calculator. It's really smart. The thing you got to remember is you can never let it be smarter than you." And I think AI is the exact same thing, where it's plenty smart. It can have a lot of capabilities, but if we're using its capabilities as a substitute for our human judgment, then we're in trouble. So how we keep AI like subservient to that, I'm not sure. I just think that's maybe the guiding principle that I'd follow.
One last barrage of rapid fire questions, because I know you need to run. When are we going to get AI into robots? Is Fresco going to take advantage of that? And would there be a $1,000 home in 5 to 10 years from now?
When are we going to get AI into robots? I would hope within the next decade. Is Fresco going to be part of that? Like, yes, absolutely. Will we get a $100,000 home? Like, yes, I think that's already possible to do.
$1,000
or $1,000 home. Like, yes, I think that's already possible to do through materials like 3D printing or even soil compression. The only question is like, can we get the regulators to move as quickly as the technology is moving? Like here in California, the cost of building a home is not the cost of materials necessarily; it's the cost of dealing with regulators. And until we can get around that, it's really difficult to see where we can get the cost down that much.
All right, Arvind, thank you so much. Where can we find out more about you?
Great. Yeah, you can find more about me at the Fresco website. It's fresco-ai.com.
So that was Arvind Veluvali and Charles Cormier, another founder.